for me. Some champagne and one a little bit.
Welcome everybody. Welcome back to our second episode of Unveiling the Voices. My name is Valerie.
And I'm Charlotte.
And we are so excited that you decide to join us once again for our second episode. We got a great topic to talk about today.
So our first intro, we had a lot of fun. We got a chance to kind of show you guys who we are, why we're here. We're going to talk about serious topics. We're going to have fun. Today, because it's centered around the holidays, we really wanted to talk about loss. And I know probably many of you have experienced loss around the holidays, and not necessarily, loss of a family member or friend, although that's pretty sensitive too. You may be going through a loss of divorce, or you might have lost an animal around this time, or just any type of loss. Your children may be going through loss through a marital separation, a loss of a job, anything that is affecting you like mentally. We know around Christmas time is a really, really sensitive time, and so we want to kind of dive into that topic. Valerie, have you experienced any loss around the holidays?
Yes, I have. I experienced a loss, which was really hard for me. My grandmother, she actually died on December 20th, and it was hard for me. She came up here 2 years ago. And not 2 years ago, I would say. It was several years ago. But she came and she stayed for about 3 or 4 years. And she actually was here because it was hard for my mom to continue to take care of her because my grandmother had dementia. And so for people who may have experienced dementia or right now even having parents going through dementia, that was a major loss for me. She came and stayed with me. My aunt said, let her stay with you for a while and then she'll stay with me. And I didn't really understand dementia. Mm-hmm. And what it all entailed. I will hear people say, oh, such and such, my aunt has dementia or such and such, but I never been around anybody who had dementia. And that was really, really hard for me, mentally and emotionally. And, I looked at my grandmother. My grandmother, she was the rock of the family. You remember back then, I don't know with your family, but like back then, every Sunday, we was at grandma's house, right?
Yeah, this matriarch.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And she would cook dinner and all of our cousins from everywhere come and we playing Pitty Pat, Pacino. Y'all, now I'm telling y'all my age. Pacino and all those different things. And it was just family fun.
So what was her name for you? What did you call her?
I would call her Gramp.
Gramp.
Hey, Gramp. And, she was strict. She was all about family. And, my grandmother, she was an introvert. She was an introvert, always stayed home, just went to work, came home. It was always about her kids, always about her grandkids. She really didn't want to do anything outside of it. Even when I was growing up, she always wanted her grandkids around. She just enjoyed family. Mm-hmm. And when I found out that she had dementia and my mom said, she really wanted to send her up here and, to give her kind of a mental break. And so I really didn't realize what I was going to be up against, really. And just to see my grandmother go from this strong woman mm-hmm. that I knew to a woman who didn't even recognize me, to a woman who didn't even know my name. One minute she will know me, next minute I would be like a total stranger to her. She didn't know me. She didn't want me to touch her or anything. And that was really hard for me because can you imagine somebody that you truly love and that practically raised you, you was around, mm-hmm. she was your grandmother, you learned so much from her, and then at your age of grown, she didn't know you. I had no problem taking care of her because she took care of me too. And so that was my grandmother. I was going to do whatever. But it was also a life change for me and my husband, because then I would have to put extra locks on the door so she wouldn't go out. Then we would have to put little alarms on the windows and all those different kind of things. And so it was so hard. And I actually had to go to a counseling session because I needed to find out how to deal with that. Because it was so hard. She would fight me back. You know, she would be up she didn't know the difference from night and day. So she would be up all hours of the night. And we had a 2-story house, so I would be scared if she was going to fall down the stairs. So I would sleep upstairs with her. I had to put her in the tub. And to see my grandmother go from there to she acting like a little child. Like, Mommy. That was emotional for me and mental. It like really broke me down. I had a breakdown.
Yeah.
And I went to a support group for families who was taking care of their parents or relatives or whoever with dementia. And it was something about what they were going through. Some of their family members, they would have to hide all the knives and everything because their parents would go in there and get the knife and come in their room because they would think that they're a stranger. And so it was heartbreaking just to hear those stories. But the simple fact of me knowing that I wasn't alone, that I wasn't experiencing this by myself, but it was tiring and emotional and mental for me. But at the end of the day, I wouldn't change it because it was my grandmother. And I remember she started deteriorating and she started getting sick. And she was in hospice. And at the time, they were trying to get ready to transition her home back to us. And before that, my aunt was there. And so my aunt was saying, I'm going to go home. And she said, Val, can you come and watch her? And I said, yes. And I came. She looked at me. And she kind of smiled. And it was a bed beside the bed. And I was going to stay the night. And so I was standing there rubbing her head. Grandma, you know, how you doing? I love you. And I felt as though she was fighting to hold on because she so much loved her family. I don't even want to get emotional about it.
It's okay.
But it was like she was holding on because she was the matriarch of the family, you know, and she just didn't want to let go.
Yeah.
And me and my aunt had to tell her, it's okay, you can go now, because you've done we're all good. The boys are good, your sons are good, your grandkids are good, you're good. You could go now. And I sat there and I saw my grandmother take her last breath when I said, Gramps,
Oh.
you can go now. It's okay. We love you. We got it. And she took her last breath. And even though she took her last breath, I screamed. And the nurses came and they said she's gone. Which I knew she was gone. And death, you can never be prepared for death.
Right.
I don't care whether you see somebody has cancer, a diagnosis, and they tell you they may have 6 months to live. It's never easy. Death is never easy. Never. But I was so glad that I was there with her when she took her last breath, because I'm her first granddaughter. And so for me to be there and to go through the dementia with her during her last couple of years here on earth I will never ever forget that. And I'm so thankful even for that. to be with her, even experiencing her with her dementia and the fighting, and she would fight with me and pull on my clothes and just all those different things. And she was always say, she want to go back home to Orange, New Jersey. And it just the roller coaster of emotions of one minute she remembers me, then the next minute she goes back to her childhood, then the next minute she doesn't know me, then the next minute she want to fight, then the next minute she can't tell the difference between day and night. It was like some days she don't even sleep. So it was just hard for me. So the loss around this holiday time, I think about my grandmother and I think about those times, but I also think about the good times that she had, and some of the things I couldn't believe, like my grandmother would do to me, what my boyfriends and stuff and say to me. And so those things helped get me through with the laughter and the things that she said and just the woman that she was. And, that's why I do my walks for the Walk for Alzheimer's and Dementia. And so I support that. And so I'm just so thankful for that. But I think about the memories. But during this time, because she passed 5 days before Christmas, is hard. But I know the kind of woman my grandmother would say, stop all that crying.
Right now.
Stop
now,
all that crying. So that's one of the things that makes me laugh.
Yeah.
And just like, okay, Grandma, I stopped crying,
And that is the resilience part when we talk about our podcast and resilience, because I think every person that's listening to this podcast has experienced loss, and it may not have happened around the holidays, but it's always your first holiday, your first birthday without your loved one, your first anniversary, your first Christmas, Thanksgiving, New Year's that you have to go through. And it doesn't mean that just because it's your first, it's going to be the hardest, because I lost my father over 30 years ago. And he was the love of my life. He was the best father. Every person has faults, but for me and my family, I believe he was perfect. My dad died at the young age of 62. So every year around the holidays, I think about, in particular Christmas, I think about him, and the timing of his death is what really kind of gets me, because he had just retired from HISD at 62. His birthday was in February. He retired, I guess, in May or June of that year, and he died in December. So my dad died of liver cancer. He was diagnosed, and the doctor said, he has probably 4 months to live. It was in a very aggressive form. Liver cancer, you just can't fight liver cancer. And he died 3 months later. And, when I think about him, I can't help but to think about the good times, because he didn't experience a long battling illness with cancer. It was very aggressive. When he died, he still looked handsome. My girlfriends used to drool over my dad and talk about how handsome he was, and he was a very handsome man. And he still had all his hair. He looked normal. He just looked a little thinner. But it was devastating, for me, that he was just gone, just like that. From retiring, and we're thinking about, okay, Dad, what are you going to do now that you're retired? What are you going to do with your time? And he always loved taking pictures. So we're like, you can go to HCC and go to photography school. He loved taking care of our lawn. We had an immaculate lawn, front and back. And he would make us and our friends, if our friends were there, sweep the grass, rake the grass, and do all these things to keep our grass well manicured. And I miss that now, but we fussed about it then. But he was just the best. I don't cry as much. Sometimes I do get sensitive.
it's all right. It is all right.
When I look at old pictures of him, because he was my dad. You know, it's not like he was an uncle. He was our father, and he spoiled us rotten. He just gave us everything we wanted and desired. He worked hard to make sure that we were provided for. And when I look at other men, I pull some of my dad's characteristics, and I'm like, if you can just like be like this. Now, granted, he wasn't perfect, but he loved hard. He loved his kids hard. And I didn't say it on the first podcast, but I'm a master's prepared registered nurse as well. And so when you talk about dementia, I think it's probably a lot of our listeners, I'm sure, have experienced a family member that's died of dementia. Back in the day, they just said you died of old age because you're forgetful. And you turn on the stove and it's, need to turn on the stove. You wandering down the street, you doing all those things you talked about. It's a lot of family members have experienced that. I lost my mother-in-law to dementia. And so it's a really hard thing. And there's like a lot of even support groups just for dementia survivors because it is so well known now. They have nutritionists that come up with certain foods you eat, what to not do to prevent you from getting dementia. They have people that are being diagnosed, in their 60s and 70s with dementia. We know famous entertainers that have died from dementia. So it really hits home for me when you talk about your grandmother. And I know if you want to comment, if you've lost someone due to dementia, we feel your pain because we've went through it. But we did want to just talk about loss today because it's such a, a lot of people don't talk about it. And what you see on social media is all the celebrations around this time, around Valentine's and all this time. And we tend to sometimes forget that there are people suffering in silence because of loss, and people are, that our time is not promised. There are people dying every day. Thank God we're still here and healthy, but there are people dying every day. And so through that loss, like, how do they like really adjust, or how can, I think the conversation is, how can we be a little more sensitive around the holidays and making sure that we are posting something or reaching out to people that we know that may be going through a first time loss, a divorce for the first time, they've lost their parents, sisters and brothers, baby, their child might have died. So what can we do? What do you think are some of the things that we can do to just support our community around the holidays, the community of people who are going through loss? Some people will post it and some people won't. But what I've seen is if a person posted on social media, then you have all these comments. Me too. My dad died and blah, blah, blah. Me too. My children's father died and blah, blah, blah. So they're not saying it per se, but if you say it, they'll chime in. So I would like for us to have just a little discussion about some of the things that we think we can do to support those individuals that are going through a hard time, in particular around the holidays.
I just feel as though that people just want to just have a listening ear at times. A lot of times when we're going through a loss, there's so many things that we think about, the things that we didn't say before they passed, or the things I wish I would have said, and all those different things. And knowing that maybe someone died and when they passed, y'all had an argument right before they passed, or something, unexpected. Tragedy happens. But one of the things for me is definitely to surround yourself with people I know some people don't want to be surrounded, but in actuality, that's the best. The people who genuinely love you. And just knowing that someone is there for you to have that listening ear, even in the dark hours or the night hours, that you know that you can call on and just to talk, or even just to have that friend or someone that they don't even have to say nothing, but just to know that I'm there. I'll pick up the phone for you if I need you or when I need you. And just doing a pop-up at the person's home or inviting. So even for me, for Thanksgiving, I have Thanksgiving at my house every year. And I always tell the people who are coming, my family, my friends who's coming, don't let anyone who's going to be in Thanksgiving by themselves that you know, don't let them be at home by themselves. Tell them to come. Because one of the things for me is I don't want anybody to be around holiday season by themselves, because you know what the Bible say and the people say, an idle mind is a devil workshop. And so when your mind is idle and when you're in that depressed state, then everything runs through your mind. Then you start thinking about yourself. Why am I even here? I want to go where such and such is. Now you start feeling that you have no one here for you, you know, because that person was always there for you and that love that you had from that person. But knowing that there's other people that could just love you and put their arms around you. And so I feel as though as a community, they need to do more things to support, more things to think about, because all that's still dealing with mental health.
Right.
In actuality.
It is. It's still dealing with mental health, but I think it's also okay to acknowledge when people just want to be by themselves. And especially if it's recent. And so it can work like both ways. But I also think it's a time for people to focus on themselves. You know, this can be a self-care moment for me. I've lived through this. I've worked hard. I've taken care of my grandmother, right? I put all of my priorities aside to take care of her. Now let me focus on my health, because I have no guilt. I've done everything I can. Let me focus on myself. And so self-care, I think, is one thing. And the other thing that comes to mind is kind of creating new traditions. And particular if you're going through, say if you're losing a spouse and you have children, right? Now you've gone from a 2-parent household to 1 parent, and your traditions have always been around the holidays to do certain things around the Christmas season, but now it's just you and your kids. It's to create something new. And I think that's a way to show your children that you are resilient and that you can change as times change, and it can still be something very, very positive. And I definitely think, you know, reaching out to support groups, there are a lot of community groups out there who want to support people, in particular children around the holidays. If parents are having a hard time, you know, buying them gifts or doing whatever, is not to feel guilty because someone wants to help you. It doesn't mean that you're getting a handout. It really means that someone is helping pick you up. So don't feel guilty if someone wants to buy your kids gifts. You know, if they have a toy drive, get in your car, take your kids, or go and pick up those toys, put up your Christmas tree, and thank God that somebody was thinking about you and shared that information with you and do that. So it's a lot of different ways I think we can support each other around the holidays, and it's okay to be sad because that's just normal. It's just normal emotions to go through a period where you're missing, you know, that loved one or that friend, but we don't want to sulk in it, right?
Exactly.
You want to remember the good times, like you remember, you know, about your grandmother. Like I remember the good times about my dad, and so it's a lot. But I thought this was a good time for us to just talk about, loss. And we want to hear from our new community that's building up, and comment or share, your stories or your suggestions that you may have in order to help somebody else.
And as you was talking and you was talking about your father, I was thinking about the post that you have posted on social media about your dad always wanting to take pictures of y'all.
He always wanted to take pictures of us. Like, come on, y'all, come outside. Let me take a picture of my girls. We always had on all those shorts and tanks or whatever, and we just do a little pose like that. And he just loved doing that. And we ran across some old pictures. I did at my mom's house when I was visiting. So I had my phone. I was just taking pictures and stuff, and I thought, this is around the time that I really started thinking about my dad, and so that was a picture I had never seen before. So I let me put this on social media. Yeah, those type of memories,
Yes,
yeah,
and
to keep them alive.
Yes, and it was funny. I was going through some pictures actually yesterday, and I was going through the Google photos. Google save all your photos, and I went back, and it was a picture of my grandmother. And she was sitting on the bench, and she was at a park. And I was like, oh, I know exactly what park she was at. And I was like, what she was doing there? And who was she with? and she was just at peace. Because she always liked sitting at the park. She always, she was a walker. She liked to walk. And she was just sitting at the park. And I'm sure she was looking at the kids because she liked that. And even during that dementia time, she knew exactly what time the school bus came. And she would go to the door. And I would say, what you doing, Gramps? And she would stop outside. And then she wanted to sit outside, and the school bus would stop right in front of my house on the corner. And she would look at all the kids get off the bus, and they would go to their different ways. And then she would stand up and watch them like it's her little kids, making sure they make it all the way down the street and all that and stuff like that. And so I thought about that, going through that, and thought about her with that. And it just made me smile, and laugh about that.
So you're keeping memories alive.
Yeah.
Right? Because you don't want, for people that you really love that are passed on, you don't want those memories to die.
No.
Like, you want to talk about them. You want to post about them. You want to share that with your kids. My daughter was born, after my dad passed. And so she has no... she doesn't know him at all. So just to, share the good things about your family members.
Yes.
So I don't know. I feel happy right now.
Yeah, I do.
Just talking about it.
I do. And even that little tear, it just helped me. Crying a little bit, it helps.
Yeah, I hate crying with the camera and the lights, but we human too.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that hat though right now. Can we talk a little bit about that hat?
Yes, the yellow hat, the yellow. I have so many different color hats. The next time y'all see me, I'm probably gonna have a little feather out of one of my hats or something.
It's super cute.
Yes.
It's super cute. It's super cute.
Thank you.
And so listen, guys, we wanted to just kind of dive into different topics that we think is more appropriate for the season. We have a full lineup of things that we want to talk about, following our characteristics and unveiling the voices. How do you guys like the name still? Unveiling the voices.
Yes.
I love it. I love it.
Yes.
And so we're going to be, I'm not sure what our next topic is going to be. Have we talked about it?
No,
we haven't talked about our next topic. But if you follow us on social media, you'll know ahead of time, so you'll be prepared to chime in. We want to kind of mix it up, and not have all our topics so serious. And we're gonna just do different types of things. And so we want to end with a little, movement.
Yes, absolutely.
We end with a
we
little
like
moving.
to dance and have fun too.
Hey,
hey, let's go. Let's go.
Let's go. Let's go.
Sometimes you gotta smile.
That's right. We going. Until next time, guys. We will